And so we get a live-action adaptation of Disney's classic animated film, Beauty and the Beast. This version is directed by Bill Condon, who gave us the last two Twilight films, but don't hold that against him. This film is almost a scene-for-scene remake, but not to the degree of, say, Gus Van Sant's Psycho, in which it becomes absolutely pointless. But is it as good as the original? Well, no, it isn't. Beauty and the Beast, the animated version, is perhaps my favourite animated Disney film. I think that this film, what it does is it paints a really great love letter, I guess, to that original film. But in many ways, it does feel like we're watching people act out their favourite scenes from the film. What I think this movie does particularly well is bring new bits into it. There are some additions to the backstories of both Belle and the Beast, the prince. I think that kind of fleshes out their characters a bit more, and it also, I think, makes their journey from kind of hating each other to loving each other seem a bit more realistic, I guess, a bit more believable. It's something that I think in the past, when I've watched the animated version, it does feel like it happens very quickly. It kind of happens in a montage, essentially, and we get those scenes here that really does flesh that out, and I think it helps. But as I say, the reliance on all the other stuff from the original film, which is kind of done almost scene for scene. You get the same songs in there, just with other people singing them. You're always going to compare it to the original, and because we've had the original for 20 years, kind of playing in our heads, like listening to them songs again and again, it is very hard to make any kind of objective opinion of it that isn't going to instantly compare it to that original. It's because of that fact that I do have to put a different lens on when I'm watching this film, trying to take it purely on its own terms. If I hadn't seen that original, if I didn't know what this was a remake of, then I think I would like this film a heck of a lot more. Visually, it's absolutely stunning. The production design on this is flawless. I think the costumes and all the sets and just, the world they create here is really cinematic. I also like Emma Watson in the role of Belle. However, I'm a bit iffy on Dan Stevens in this. I like Dan Stevens quite a lot, a big fan of The Guest. But I think here, when we see him in his human form, he doesn't really get a right lot to do. And when he's in his beastly form, well, to be honest, the Beast in this doesn't look particularly great. I think some of the special effects on it look weightless. They feel very kind of, too polished, too CGI. Not kind of on the level of, say, Caesar from the Planet of the Apes films, in which you truly believe you could reach out and touch the physicality of that character. A bit more work, I think, could have gone into the design and both the realisation of the Beast. So once Dan Stevens' performance kind of gets buried underneath all that, it does kind of leave me asking the question, does he really get to shine through? And I think the answer, really, is no. There are a few more original songs done for this version, which I gotta say, on first listen, I actually quite liked. Now, again, you're always going to have that thing that you're going to compare them to the songs of the original, but again, we've had 20 years to let those songs really settle in and fester in our brains. So to judge them by those standards, I think is a bit premature. I think we need to watch this a few more times, let them songs go around our head, and then make a judgment. But for now, on first watch, I liked them. The real standout from the performance perspective for me is Luke Evans as Gaston. Gaston's one of my favourite villains from the Disney canon. His preening nature and just how in love he is with himself. That's really translated quite well here. And it could have come off as, just a tad weird, shall we say, strange, but in the hands of Luke Evans, I think he just commits to it wholeheartedly and he makes it work. Someone else who doesn't quite work for me is Josh Gad as LeFou. I'm not particularly bothered that they've gone the route of making him gay. I know some people have kicked up a bit of a stink about that. But it's just the fact that they make him so creepy and clingy. And at one point in the film, they do address that. They talk about him being clingy. But yeah, there's a few lines of dialogue as well that they add here that aren't in the original. That, again, you kind of think we could have done without that. Like at one point, he essentially points out the fact that he's illiterate. And it doesn't really sit well with me when I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, right, okay, could have done without that, actually. Some people may find that offensive. I don't know. But yeah, I just don't really like the portrayal of that character by Josh Gad. He makes him a bit too clingy, a bit too creepy, and yeah, does a disservice, I guess, to what could be a strong character for gay people out there to look up to. In the end though, this film is really a lavish retelling of the original, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. Now, I know I pointed a few things out about it that I didn't like, but I think it had a lot of weight on its shoulders, a lot of expectation, and I think all in all, it's done pretty well to come out as well as it has. You know, the original Beauty and the Beast for me is a 5-star film. So they've taken a 5-star film and they've turned it into a 4-star film. It's not quite as good, but if we didn't have that original, I think we'd look at this through much more forgiving eyes, shall we say. And that's why I'm going to give it that 4 stars. What about you? Do you think I'm being too generous, or do you think I'm not being harsh enough? Have you seen this film? What did you think about it? Comment below, let me know, and until next time, cracking. And so we get a live action version of... And so we get a...